Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for attending the webinar on model-based system engineering with SysML and Cameo tools. So I'm Lakshmi from Trident InfoSolve. The agenda for today's session is an introduction on both the company's DESO system and Trident InfoSolve. Later, Mr. Kiran, the speaker for today's session, will drive you through some features on model-based system engineering with NoMagic and Cameo tools. Later part of the webinar, we will demonstrate some case studies on various. Later part of the webinar, we will showcase some case studies of various domains. Later with the cyber physics system, and at the end of the session, we will handle the Q&A session. As you all know, DESO system is known as a scientific company. There are around 2.5 lakh of customer base, and DESO is one of the largest software vendors supporting various domains. DESO system provides software solution for the entire product lifecycle process from the conception to the maintenance stage. I think you all will be wondering how Trident and DESO are together. So Trident is partnered with DESO system, and our operation started in the year 2000. We have our presence across India with a team of 200 plus. Today, we are known as a complete solution provider in the industry. We are known as a complete solution provider in the industry. We have partnered with various OEMs, and DESO is being one of the key partner for system engineering solution. Everyone understands the middle part of the image. Which Trident covers the solution across our V cycle. And today we will talk about NoMagic. And coming to today's speaker, Mr. Kiran. Kiran has almost 13 plus years of experience, who's working as an industry process consultant manager at DESO system, and he has an experience of 13 plus years in all the domains. Over to you, Kiran.
Yeah, thanks, Lakshmi. I think, Brian, can you make me as a presenter? Right. And I believe you could, can somebody verify that you can see the screen? I'm hoping that you can see the screen. Okay, so let's start with.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, you can see the screen, right?
Yes, yes, great.
Okay, so yes, okay. So yeah, thanks everyone for attending this kind of a webinar on SysML and model-based design. So before I get into what exactly is SysML and how does Cameo tool work, I actually wanted to spend some time on what exactly is model-based design. Usually people tend to have their own perception of what is model-based design. So I wanted to make it very clear of what is our understanding and how do we perceive system engineering with model-based design and SysML. Okay, and after that, I'll probably take you through some of the key enablers of MBAC, what we call as the 3 pillars, which is language, framework, and tool. And then we'll get into some real live demos on case studies like the vehicle control system, the radar system, and the mission missile system. And then we'll end with a Q&A. Okay, so how is DESO into this? DESO, I think everybody knows DESO purely because of CATIA, which is a flagship product of ours. But DESO did invest in system engineering a lot over the given period of time, starting with Dynasym or Dynamo, what we call now, was the first acquisition, and then we acquired companies like GeneSoft. We also came up with the concept of collaborative system engineering on the platform, commonly known as RFLP framework. And then subsequently, we also added new tools and features. And one of the major acquisitions in this period was NoMagic, somewhere around 2018. So this is how no magic is associated with Dassault. If you ask somebody to define what is my model-based system engineering, I think everybody would have their own definition. This is a definition from kind of INCOSE and OMG. So basically, if you want to put it in a nutshell, MBSE is nothing about. It's all about requirements, analysis, architecture, verification and validation throughout your development phase. That is from your concept, your preliminary design, your detailed designing, integration, production, utilization, and even retirement. Okay. So this is the official, the definition from the INCOSE. So any process which involves using models to do your system engineering work is called an MBSE. So you actually use modeling and simulation tools to capture all the artifacts of the system engineering. That is what is called MBSE, and it has kind of key criteria under it. One is the criteria is the system requirements. Another one is analysis. Third one is the design, and fourth one is verification validation. So basically, you're going to do system analysis, requirements, design, verification validation throughout your covering concepts till your exam. So that is the definition of INCOSE. That is the definition from INCOSE and MBSE. Okay, so probably a couple of slides. It might be kind of repetitive, but the idea was people did follow system engineering over the period of time. They did all these requirements, architecture definition, system design, analysis, but basically on the document, using documents or standalone tools to do it. The idea is to bring them all together onto one model, something to use, something like using graphical simulation tools in order to do this process. And that's where MBSE or SysML works. So the idea was to move from a document-based approach to more linear, which is system-based approach. So let's start with MBSE workflows. If you go ask anybody on the street and ask what exactly is MBSE, they would say MBSE is 3 cycles. They say, okay, MBSE starts with requirements, architecture, detailed designing, implementation, verification, validation, and that is what exactly is their perception of MBSE. Basically, V cycle is and sorry, can some of you mute your phone at the other end? I hear a lot of disturbances. Okay, so basically, as per INCOSE, system engineering kind of adheres to this standard called the generic life cycle, the ISO IEC IEEE 15288 life cycle is what the INCOSE adheres to, and V cycle was an output of that life cycle. So V cycle is not completely MBSE, but it's kind of an adaptation from the main life cycle, and the V cycle is a process which is followed basically by software development. So that's the clarification on MBSE and V cycle. Moving on. So let's understand MBSE in kind of a different perception in terms of product development. So usually what happens in a product development is you start with requirements, you actually build your architecture, do the product modeling, coding, integrate it, do the production and get into utilization. And probably the next phase is retirement as per the INCOSE. But if you look at that, so INCOSE has said what exactly happens at the concept phase, the development phase, the production utilization phase, and requirement gathering. I'll be explaining this chart in a more detail in the next slide. So basically, it starts with gathering the requirements, defining it, and then you get into the architecture and the implementation phase. So let's understand this process a bit detailed. So the starting point of any product development as per INCOSE is your CONOP. CONOP stands for Concept of Operation. It's basically a customer document. For example, I'm preparing a product for the customer. Customer will give his wish list, and that is captured as part of CONOP. Or for something like an automotive OEM, they start with marketing data or the product feature data. So that is kind of termed as CONOP, the starting point of the product development. And then what happens is this CONOP is read by multiple stakeholders, and they define specific requirements. For example, an OEM is coming up with a safety feature, then there is stakeholders who actually work on safety features. They give the requirement for that safety feature. And then it becomes part of a document called System Requirements and Specifications. So basically, a requirement is taken up by the concerned stakeholders, and they will define those requirements and capture it as part of System Requirements and Specifications. For example, somebody is working on landing gear, so there will be hydraulic steam involved, there will be a control steam involved, aerodynamic steam involved, and they will specify what are the requirements for the landing gear. And that gets captured as your System Requirements and Specifications. So of a crude document. Everything is captured here, and this becomes a benchmark for your product. And then what happens is this document is pulled by respective architectures, and then they will start working on the architecture. So usually, basically, for a complex product which involves electronics, software, and mechanical, there might be 3 key architecture pathways. It might be more for a traditional product, but I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just taking 3D domains. So for example, landing gear, there'll be a mechanical team who will be working on the structure, the fluid part, the thermal part, and there'll be architecture involved for that. There will be something like a EE team who works on the electrical and electronics, and there might be a software architecture. But usually what happens in the industry, the software architecture and the EE team kind of work as one unit, but for the simplicity of this example of kind of demarketing. And once the architecture is prepared, this moves to specific designers. So somebody is working on actually the architecture for mechanical. On fluid, he might be using CAD, he might be using Dymola, he might be using Similia for FEA, some like that, or Simpact for multi-body. And then somebody working on the electrical architecture, he might be using MATLAB, Simulink kind of tools, and coding might be using on IDE. And then finally, what they do is they all integrate together, do the testing. So this is a portion of it which I'm trying to focus on. I'm not interested in production utilization requirement at this point of time. So this is a focus area. But there are also other constraints. People might say they do MBAC, saying that I actually use Excel sheets to capture my requirements. I might actually use Visio to do my process modeling. I might use MATLAB and Simulink. I might use CATIA for my CAD. And then I do my MBAC process. But probably as you go along, you'll have a perception of probably that is not a true MBAC process. There are some gaps when you actually use different tools, and if they're discrete and if they're not integrated. So this is the main workflow of an MBAC process. Let me take an example. Probably let's go dig deeper into this MBAC, taking an example. I'm taking an example of something new which has been coming into the automotive, which is called automated emergency braking system. So there are 2 main functionalities of this AEBS system. One is it has to identify a pedestrian or an object while crossing the road, or it could be a car braking when it sees an obstacle in front of it, like another car braking. So when you look at the IO diagram here of an ABS, I've just simplified it. It's more complex than this. Basically, the input for it is obstacle, pedestrian, environment. It controls the power, and what it does is cuts off the engine power. It does the braking, and it also intimates the driver. So this probably is a major activity of an ABS system. Some ABS system also work with adaptive cruise control and electronic stability program. So if our car already has ACC and ESP, then it kind of adds on feature to that. So let's look at this scenario in a traditional way of the MBAC workflow, where the main management team says, yes, the new vehicle that they're going to launch will have ABS. So what are we going to do about it? So there are stakeholders who will come up and say, okay, these are the requirements for the ABS. They capture it as a system requirement specification document, and then it's picked by all, because the ABS involves vehicle dynamics, powertrain. You have a lot of embedded stuff which goes in, and also software coding. And then probably they would do their individual part and then all integrate together to a complete integration. So let's look at some of the scenarios. Say suppose what has happened is the automotive OEM has introduced this new feature, the development has happened, the integration has happened, and it is on its way to the production as well. And then you're doing the testing on the road now. Okay. So one scenario is your vehicle is moving at less than 80 kilometers per hour on a flat road, on a straight road, and it's sunny environment, and the vehicle performs perfectly fine. It brakes automatically. This could be a little above normal scenario where the vehicle is moving over, it's doing a cornering simulation or a cornering turn. There is a turn, and then it's doing a cornering maneuver, and then it kind of passes that test also. Or we push it to an extreme where the vehicle is doing a cornering maneuver, but it's raining, so the coefficient of friction of the road is very less, and it fails miserably. So there is an accident or something like that. So what has happened is it has passed a couple of tests for one critical test the ABS system has failed. If this scenario happens in a development environment, okay, so some might say that, okay, Kiran, you might be bluffing here. People who actually build this ABS system are very smart, and these things may not happen. Let me show you a couple of the videos that I found on the internet. These were actual live demos of ABS system, okay, performed in front of journalists, and the system fails. Okay, So one of these guys was in VP, was doing the demonstration. Okay. So these things happen in automotive industry. When that happens, there's a lot of confusion inside the system. Basically, there'll be a lot of blame gaming, and then the priorities catch the culprit, and why did this happen? But this happens because if your process is not integrated, you don't have a discipline, you don't follow the MBSE process properly, this tends to error like this. Okay, and it's a very common known fact. So let's do some synopsis. For example, when should have been captured? We should have caught this error. For example, an optimistic simulation or an optimistic scenario that somebody at the architecture caught this, but very unlikely that the architecture will capture it if it doesn't follow the proper SCMB process. It's very unlikely. But the goal is to do that. So I would say it's an optimistic scenario. So I think the company will be pretty happy that we have caught a scenario like this, and then the cost and time is not much because we caught for the right time. I would say ideally somebody at the design level should have caught this, the detailed design phase, but also unlikely because ABS is an integrated system. You have mechanical, software, electronics are playing part, and since these processes are working in discrete, very unlikely to do so. So there is a time and cost impact. Somebody at integration phase, okay, it's still acceptable for the OEM because they're still not got into production. So, but again, there is an implication on cost and time because you should have, if somebody calls it the integration phase, and you're actually going back, changing your architecture, changing the software code, and also the electrical design or the E architecture. So there are some implications and rework associated with this. What OEM doesn't want is somebody catching mistakes at this point, where the customer is telling you something is going wrong, and then you probably get into recalls and all that. So when you catch, make a lot of impact, and then that probably is the reason why people get into MBSE. So what is the desirable expectation? So somebody like management, they say, okay, you should have told me this way earlier. I think we wasted a lot of time and energy, and we should have come up way earlier when we are doing the requirement elicitation process. That would management desire. Or somebody at the architect says, okay, if the requirement was right, I would have caught them. Since that requirement was not captured, I didn't capture it. Or the engineer would say, okay, if somebody had given me a validated requirement, a proper validated architecture with all the interfaces, I would have done my job better. Or the testing team might say, we should have defined these scenarios well before we got into this. So this is some desirable expectation, a valid expectation as part of the product development. And then everybody will ask for traceability. Yeah, I would probably have a traceability of how the architecture was defined, or the requirements got mapped into the architecture, into the design and all that. So this is where SysML comes into the picture. SysML actually helps you with all this process, and it's part of everybody's job. It kind of links to everyone. So if you look at this image closely, we're not replacing tools with SysML. It actually can work with other tools, the existing legacy tools. But where there's a major impact at the architecture level. I think this is where SysML does a major impact. You can catch mistakes at this level itself. Okay, so let's move on. So what are the takeaways? So with SysML and MBSE process in place, you actually create use case scenarios. You actually create context diagrams for the management to understand what is coming down the line. What are the complexities involved? And complexity usually gets translated into cost and time. So for them, it's very criteria. It's kind of a criteria that, yeah, we understand there's complexity involved, what is involved, how much is the time required. So SysML can help you with that. It can also help you refine your requirements. Sometimes what happens is there's a lot of unwanted requirements get creeped into your requirements document. Each requirement is a cost. So management pretty want that when we get into the development phase, you should have all our requirements filtered and verified. The architecture will say, yeah, give me a proper requirement so that I can do my architecture better. And also that I can help you. I can also help people downstream. I can define the interfaces. I can define all that is needed. I can do validation of the requirements in the architecture phase and then help people downstream. The developers say, yeah, give me something which is already proven so that my work becomes easy. And I would put less effort in doing not his job. Basically, what happens is usually some of the coders write their own requirements because somebody at the top forgot or didn't mention the requirements for the stage. And they write requirements, they also build the architecture sometimes. So these unnecessary jobs get diluted. And then with SysML and MBSE place, it gives you all that predefined test cases, validated test cases, use cases, and then it gives a traceability towards the entire development work that has happened throughout. So So that is the whole advantage of having a SysML and MBAC. So now probably we could understand this graph much better. Okay. So what you see here is there are two graphs. One is the blue graph which says the process with MBAC, and the red graph which says the process without MBAC. But if you look at it closely, there is a kind of a jump at the initial part of the MBAC, and then it kind of tapers down, whereas the process without MBAC is very linear. But when you see the graph, it kind of shoots up at the end. So basically what the graph is saying, there is an initial investment required for the tools, for the experts who work on MBAC, but you'll see the value of it much later as part of the product development. So I think according to Infosys, you have to spend around 14% more on your product for MBAC, but the value what you save is kind of 80% more. So the value it brings onto the table is kind of that's how they quantify it. It's much bigger, and even you don't the scenario of something getting worse or something going wrong significantly comes down due to MBAC process. There is also another graph which talks about requirements. As per this graph, 70% of defects are introduced as a requirement, because during the requirement catch-up, you didn't do your work properly, and most of the defects are introduced in requirements, and most of it is caught at the coding phase. So somebody is coding the logic for it, or somebody is doing the integration for it, not the coding. Most of it is caught as the integration. When you integrate all the components together, those are the people who are catching those defects. So again, the impact of this is time and cost. Right? So why people are moving towards MBAC for product development? A couple of reasons. One I showed you is because of the disintegration, because of risk involved, and identification of risk at the early stage of product development, and also that the system is becoming complex day and day. Okay, gone are the system where systems are purely mechanical, or vehicle works purely a vehicle, or an aircraft works purely mechanical. Now it's a combination of mechanical, electronics, and electronics kind of taking a lead over other domains. So with that, what happens? The complexity of system is growing, and now we are not talking about only system. We actually manufacture system with respect to the context of the environment. So something like connected cars, right? Or the new capabilities which is being added in aerospace, that is adding to the complexity. So usually when you look at this graph, for a typical automotive or an aerospace system, there are around 2,000 to 5,000 components, 4,000 to 15,000 functions, there are 100,000 interfaces, and 1 million of requirements. So it's kind of, if you're still on an adapt way of doing the MBAC using documents, it's impossible to do your product. Because one requirement, you don't know what is the impact of requirements on the functionality, on the interfaces, on the architecture. It's very difficult to manage. Right? That is one of the reasons why people get into MBAC. So this is our slide on the INCOSE. So INCOSE is predicting, INCOSE stands for International Council for System Engineering, also pronounced as INCOSE. So they're saying most of the complex development, any product involving complex development would get into MBAC by sure. And they have this vision document called Vision 2020. I think it's a good document that you can go read about it on the internet. So basically what INCOSE is saying is any future product with a lot of complexity involved would have to get into MBAC. So MBAC, I was explaining you on what exactly is MBAC. There's other capabilities or other features also. Basically, the idea is that if the product development is complex, but you get into MBAC, it will help you with doing the requirement analysis, impact analysis. It will help you communication between various stakeholders involved. It also helps you with the cost estimation. It also helps you with reusability. For example, you have done an architecture for a product, you can actually scale it up for add additional features. So these are some of the core competencies of MBAC process. So for a nutshell, if you're thinking about MBAC, there were three parts: the modeling, the simulation, analysis part. We'll come to this later, but probably you can keep in mind. So MBAC is nothing but using modeling and simulation tools in order to define your requirements, do the analysis, do the verification, validation, and then realize into a product. So this was a kind of a short introduction to MBAC, probably long. But let's get into the business aspect of it. So if somebody is interested in MBSE and he wants to be part of that MBSE process, and he wants to understand how MBSE is implemented, there are three key aspects to it. One is the language, another is the method, third one is the tool. Okay, so this is a view or the point of view of when they actually defined MBSE process. When SysML or the SysML partners wrote the SysML code or came up with this concept of SysML, and which was adopted by OMG, this is what they pursue. There are three parts to it. One is the language, another one is the method, third one is the tool. Coming to language. So one of the most common graphical language used for MBSE is SysML. So basically, actually SysML and MBSE came together. Because of SysML, MBSE got popular, and because of MBSE, SysML is being used extensively. So both go hand in hand. So one of the languages, other languages also, we'll talk about it. So the predominant language in this space is SysML. So you need to know language. Okay. And I'm not going deep into SysML. I'll just give you a perception. SysML consists of 9 diagrams to capture the scenario viewpoints of your system. So it kind of segregated into 4 parts: the structure, the behavior, the requirements, and the parametrics. But basically working with 9 diagrams to kind of understand how. So there are diagrams to capture requirements, there are diagrams to capture use cases, there are diagrams to capture functional architecture like the activity diagram, the sequencing diagrams involved, right? And then state machine for your controller. So there are diagrams to showcase the capability of the product in terms of different point of views. So this is not a session on what is SysML. This is the session on how SysML is important. So I'll not go deeper into that. So it has this diagram. So a couple of diagrams, what you can see. So diagrams helps to understand your system much better. It will bring out what is needed, what is not needed, and it will also help you to analyze, understand, and refine your system as you go along. So there are a couple of languages. So MBSE per se doesn't say that you have to use this language or that language. But again, SysML is one of the leading graphical languages for MBSE. But there are other languages. For example, somebody is working on 1D modeling, they might be inclined towards Modelica, or somebody is working on VHDL, they might be inclined towards Verilog. Yes. But as MBSE goes, you need a modeling tool to actually capture the behavior under the simulation. So that's the language. Second one is the method. You need to understand, or you need to know methods. How do you implement this language? So there is a framework or method that Dassault actually promotes, which is called CyberMagick framework. We'll be talking on this with an example as we go along. But yes, you need one of the methods. There are other methods also. For example, Infosay has OSME methodology, or other institutes or companies have their own methodology. Basically, what methodology says is you're looking at what needs to be modeled, how it needs to be modeled, why is it needs to be modeled, what is the necessity of this. So all these questions are answered in that framework. We'll look at it as we go along. And then you need a tool. So you need a language, you need a method, and then you need a tool to execute. So the tool, there are a lot of tools available in the market. So the tool that we are talking about today is on the Cameo System Modeler. This Cameo, Cameo set of tools that will help you to do your SysML model. But there are other tools in the market which helps you that. So basically, to put it in a nutshell for a quick revision, the language we propose is SysML. The methodology we propose is CyberMagick Grid, and then the tools what we have is Cameo System Modeler. So after the acquisition of NeuroMagick, we are going to rename it. The new name for the Cameo System Modeler is Magic Cyber Systems Engineer. But I think it kind of exists as both names, so should not be a problem there. So basically, it's a tool for your system. So there are other aspects of NeuroMagick which adheres to one of the system engineering that we talked about, but it can also help you with software engineering, enterprise architecture, business modes, process modeling. So all that capability can also be addressed in NeuroMagick solution. So for somebody who's working in architect enterprise, we have Cameo enterprise architecture. Somebody is working on system level simulation, the SysML and the Cameo system model, and somebody is working on the software level. Then you have UML and Magic. That's how we segregate it. Okay, so some of the capabilities of Cameo, which I'll be showing you live in a couple of minutes. So there might be a scenario that as a practice in your organization, you might be using Excel as a main tool to capture requirements. So though you can actually capture requirements directly on Cameo, but there is a necessity if everything as a practice in your organization and require on Excel sheet, then yeah, we can integrate with Excel, we can integrate with other tools which supports OSLC, Recube. So we can actually pull the data, put it into Cameo, and then start working over it. So we support most of all the open interfaces on requirements. On the architecture, we have all the capability inbuilt, so you can actually define different diagrams. I was talking to you about. You define the main architecture, its interfaces, you perform analysis, you create use cases, test cases. Basically, you're capturing the entire behavior of your system using the capability here. You could also do code simulation. There could be a requirement where you have to bring a third-party tool and use it as part of the simulation. For example, you might be using your own EE architecture tool for embedded process. And then there might be need for that tool to integrate with NoMagic or Cameo to do a code simulation. All that we need is that tool has to support FMI. FMI stands for Functional Mockup Interface. It's a common interface used by all simulation tools, so should not be a problem. So if you're using a simulation tool, it would probably adhere to FMI. You can use the FMI standard to kind of do a code simulation or integrate with Cameo for a better analysis. You could also do a lot of trade-off studies. For example, probably I'll take an example of the missile system where I'll be talking about trade-off studies. For example, I have multiple variants of my vehicle or my aircraft, and I wanted to choose what is the best which suits my needs. So I would probably create constraints. I'll have this boundary conditions. I probably would want to understand which architecture or which product suits my needs better. So we can do this trade-off analysis. I'll be talking about this with an example. And then you could also do a dynamic rollup. So dynamic rollup is a kind of key capability of the Cameo tool because you need a traceability between all the artifacts. So somebody who's working on requirements will be using requirement diagrams. Somebody who's working on the architecture might be defining the architecture interface. Somebody who's doing the coding might be again working Cameo to do the coding. And then you need to integrate all together. And then if you can do some dynamic simulation, integrated solutions, you can also, it's kind of open and extensible. You can also extend your architecture to other capabilities. So dynamic rollup is something that's a core capability of this tool. Next, on the case studies. So I'm taking a couple of live case studies to explain how this tool is being used. One is the vehicle control, your common control system. The other one is the missile system. Third one is the troop control system. Okay, so for that I'll be using Magic Grid. Okay, so Magic Grid, as I said, is a framework. Okay, and it helps you to do what is that you need to do as part of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The problem with system kind of tools is you might get lost on how to start and end with the product development. So you might need help in that. So one of the methodologies that Dassault is proposing is on the Magic Grid framework, which starts with what we call as a problem definition. So you have a concept in mind, and you still have very less specifications or understanding of the product in terms of requirements. So you start from there. We call it as black box modeling. You can capture the stakeholder needs. You create use cases. You create system contacts. Based on the use case created, you actually create functional architecture. You validate the functional architecture. And because you've done a functional architecture, you have a better understanding of the requirements. You'll be able to derive more system requirements and validate it. So basically, it kind of flows from problem to solution to implementation with various boxes in place. And each box will tell you what exactly you should do. So it kind of helps you with from ground zero, how do you capture requirements, how to start with building basic use cases, how to capture the functional architecture, how do you bring in on hierarchy of the model, how do you define interfaces, how do you generate more requirements, validate your requirements. So this is the process that you go along. And at the end of it, you're actually looking at the implementation. So kind of a good framework. Okay. So some of the slides on on Magic Grid, why Magic Grid is important. So it kind of adheres to all the systemal diagrams. So it kind of supports SysML, any SysML, it can be Cameo or outside of it. Okay, so it's a very simple framework to implement. It's not that complicated. And somebody who's very new to SysML also kind of Magic Grid helps you to do how to start with SysML and execute things. Okay, so a couple of slides on Magic Grid, right? So let's take an example. This is an example of vehicle climate control system. So vehicle climate control system is basically an automatic climate control, or you can say an automatic AC inside the car. So let's go live on the tool. So this is Cameo. Sorry, I'm taking the wrong example. So this is Cameo, and this is my vehicle climate control system, right? So first is I would probably start with stakeholder requirements. So this is a very basic requirement for your AC, an automatic AC. So setting the temperature, heat and cold condition, noise level, climate control, right? So you've captured your requirements. And then you get into the use cases. So it's a very simple example. So don't look at it like it's too simple, because actually I use this to teach people on what exactly SysML or Magic Grid works. So the use cases is where how to use that air conditioning system. So a simple use case is there's a vehicle occupant and there is a air conditioning system, and there's a relation between the air conditioning system and the vehicle occupant. And then what you do next is actually start building your functional architecture. How does the air conditioner work, or an automatic climate control system work? So first is you turn on the system, it will check whether self-diagnosis, the system is fine, it will display the temperature, start the climate control, and then probably the user will set in what is the temperature he wants. And then when the required temperature is done, what do you do next? So you actually build architecture functionalities needed for your system. You could probably, for example, for the required temperature, what is that you need? So you might be in two conditions. It actually needs to heat or it needs to cool. So when does it need to heat? When does it need to cool? What are the inputs required? How does this flow work? Is all captured. You would also run a quick analysis on this. For example, run a simulation, right? So it starts with setting the temperature, prevent the system. What is the temperature? I'm just testing it. This is a testing point. So for example, the temperature is high in the cabin. It takes this part, it starts heating, and then it comes again. Okay, is the required temperature sufficient? You say no. Then do you want cooling? You say yes, and then it starts cooling. So the idea is that you actually building these flow diagrams to understand how your system will behave. So this usually happens without SysML. This usually happens at the integration or coding phase. This is pretty late in your development cycle. So probably let's stop this, right? And then move towards it. So once you create systems like this, you have a better understanding of how things work. You could also create context diagrams. This is another diagram which is used to understand what is the context. So context is that you have a climate control system which interacts with vehicle occupant, and it needs an energy. So now you need to design an energy system for it. Similarly, you could also, anyway, you saw this, you could build more diagrams. You could also build something like a block diagram. What is the system climate control unit? What are the interfaces? What is needs, right? And then you could also build an internal block. We call it an IBD or internal block definition, but basically you're defining all the interfaces. So when you're doing the architecture and you're also defining the interfaces, you usually get this out and it's done by the coding, right? By doing this, what is that you gain? You actually define more requirements. Once you start developing, okay, now there are two modes I need. I need a manual mode, I need the auto mode. There might be another criteria, okay, I can't have this sound level more than 50 decibels, right? What should be the mass of it? So things like this come out due to analysis like this. And then you actually go ahead and, okay, so now you need to be serious on this, and I need to build other systems. For example, I need to build, so this is the hierarchy of the system. So there is not only a cooling system, I need heating system, I need a control system, I need sensors, I need a UI interface, right? And I could also need to develop control logics like this. For example, the sensor detects something, what should be the action? What is the output of the sensor? Should we get into heating, the initialization process, operating process? So basically the idea is that you actually create different point of views. You actually run simulation, validate it, and then come out with an output. Okay. So this this was an example just to give you an insight into what is Magic Grid. Probably the next example will tell you in more detail. We're taking something like a missile system trade-off analysis. Okay, so recorded video. So what you're doing here is actually you're building a missile system. Okay, and one of the requirements is that it has to travel a particular distance. For example, say suppose one of the requirements is it should travel at 80 kilometers, travel to a distance of 80 kilometers in a given condition. Now we want to change it to 100 kilometers, right? So what you're seeing is a hierarchy of missile system, your propulsion system, unit control system, navigation, and you have airframe. So these are the key aspects of your missile system, which are captured as BBD. So you put these requirements. Right now, what has happened is one of the calculations on basically on fuel was done in MATLAB. So this was done by another team, and this fuel calculation is an important criteria to calculate your distance travel. So what you're doing is you can actually bring your MATLAB code. What you're seeing now is you're actually mapping the code with your existing architecture with all the interfaces that you've defined. Right? That is what you're doing here. And then probably pan it a bit. And then what you do next is you're running simulation. So basically you capture the MATLAB code. Now you want to calculate the distance. So you're running the simulation, it's running MATLAB at the background and it's populating the results back. So for a given fuel, you know what is the distance covered. And it's not adhering to the criteria of 100 kilometers extra, you see it in red. You go change some parameters, it could be the diameter, it could be the height, it could be the weight, and you're rerunning the simulation, right? So again, you're doing this at the architecture level. You're not gone to the actual behavior model, but you are getting some perception of how your system will behave, right? We'll probably move on to save time. You could also import FMEs. For example, part of the work was done in a tool like Daimola, and then you want to bring that in and use it as part of the data analysis. So again, you pull that tool, you're working with parameters like fuel percentage, mass, and running simulation. You could also do some behavioral simulation. This is a sequential function chart or state machine, right? That you're doing the simulation, and you're using that to do some calculations, basically on the. Okay, you could also create a sequence chart from the state machine. That is what the video shows. Basically, what you're doing is probably I'll pan it a bit to save time. What you're doing is you're doing analysis, trade-off analysis with respect to different parameters. You have hundreds of parameters. Some of the few parameters you're trying to change and see whether you're going to achieve that criteria. When you've done all this analysis, probably towards the end, the tool will be able to predict for the given different architectures that you're working with, the different concepts, what passed and what didn't pass. So simulations like this can be quickly done with Cameo. Okay. So moving on, probably the last example which I'll be taking on Cameo is on the cruise control system. So cruise control system is very similar to ABS, which I was talking about, except that it has more capabilities, just braking. It will always regulate your powertrain. So if I have to go back to my Cameo world, probably a swap to my cruise control or Carbit. Again, I've used the Magic Grid here. So this could be a requirement. Again, I've pulled it from another tool and my requirements look something like this, right? My use cases, again, this will be more defined use case for my adaptive or cruise control. So you have driver, you have people, environment, all that defined, and how is that related, right? And then you will also get into system context, measure of effectiveness in one part, probably functional analysis will be more. And then you have defined your logic, kind of high level control logic of how it will work. For example, there's something known as time to collision. If there's a 10 seconds to time to collision. So there are sensors on board which has calculated that there is 10 seconds to it will do a warning to the driver. This is the control logic written at the very high level. It will warn the driver saying that, okay, there's a 10 seconds collision, you want to take action now. And if the driver doesn't take within a given time, like 2 or 3 seconds, it will brake automatically. This is the logic that you've written. I'll show you the simulation of this and show you the results, right? You could also define other aspects in terms of functionality. Use a functionality with all the activity diagram that you've done. Okay. Some capability, again, more functionality into it. And then say, suppose you're running some analysis. Okay. So for that, I just need to change the concept. Okay. You also return a test case scenario. So there are 3 test cases I want to validate. Time to collision is 10 seconds. Time to collision is more than 2 seconds. Time to collision is less than 2 seconds. And what I'll do now is run the simulation. Okay. So you can see the background simulation happening. It's validated multiple scenarios. Okay. And then it pops me this. It says, this is the result of the analysis. It says for time to, the case was on time to collision is more than 10 seconds. Most of my checks are passed. I've put some checks in as most of it's passed and few have failed. 2 seconds, some are passed, whereas for less than 2 seconds, most of it has failed. So this time to collision or the avoidant collision doesn't work if the time to collision is 2 seconds. So something like that. So you get a perception for an architect, like how if they given architecture, this is what the result I'm going to get in. And then you can take decisive action. For example, they can say the 2 seconds is too less of a time to do anything. We'll keep it as it is. So some of the use cases. So JPL, a lab of NASA, who works on different aspects of the Mars mission, right? And they extensively use the Cameo tool for it. So for one aspect, they use for configuration management, basically for analysis in terms of power, energy, right? They also use it for logical and physical definition with all the interfaces. And this is some of the takeaways or benefits that they found using Cameo. One is for reduce ambiguities or confusion in the both process or requirements. It captures the system design and its evolution. Trade-off studies can be done, design reviews can be done easily, integrated models for early validation was done. So some of the takeaways which JPL says. So this is a kind of a slide on the aerospace domain, right? Some of the uses on the aerospace and some of the uses on the automotive. So it's been equally used in aerospace and automotive. And probably with my examples, it might look like I'm talking about automotive, but basically used anywhere. So moving on, the last topic of the day is on cyber physical systems. Okay, the reason why I'm talking about is system is just one part of the workflow where you're talking about concept, development, and probably till interface. But what will happen after interface? You will still have to work with CAD tools for mechanical. You might have to work with fluid FEA tools. You might have to work on embedded tools. You might have to also work on wire harness. So these things it's not covered as part of system, but with the platform that we have, the 3D experience platform from Dassault, it kind of addresses way beyond architecture or just system modeling. It has a capability of linking all the artifacts in terms of the electrical, mechanical, fluid, embedded systems. Okay, and you could also do something known as system of system simulation. For example, you're not only doing a product simulation, you're actually doing a simulation with respect to the environment. So with the capability, what you have as you go down now, as you can see, you can do a system of system kind of simulation, or system level simulation, product level simulation, and you can actually go down to your component level analysis and simulation, all interface and integrated on one platform. So with Cameo, you could do all of these. This was the ISO IEC IEEE 15288 spec that it adheres to, and with 3D Experience platform, the missing part is the governance, the configuration management, the other artifacts which was involved in product development is all added to it. So it kind of enhances the capability from basically product to kind of in an enterprise architecture. So anyway, so these are some of the new roles that we have been defining for system engineering with respect to NoMagic. So your system which was called Cameo, the system modeler is now called Magic Cyber System Engineer. Okay, so to give you a better understanding of how it works on the platform, probably I'll give you a small video of it. Right? Again, the same scenario where you have a product manager, you have an architect, you have a simulation expert, you have a safety expert, the electrical E architecture, the software engineer, the validation guy, all working together. So this scenario starts with the requirements engineering. So this is the dashboard of this on the platform. So this could be the dashboard of project manager is looking at various roles who can work on this project. We can integrate with third-party tools. That is what being showing now. So the platform itself acts as an open platform for all system engineering integration. Now with the storyline that is adopted, it's around ADAS, Adaptive Driver Assistance System. So in this case, the product manager, the project manager is looking for a requirement basically on ADAS, and then he wants to integrate it as part of the product development. So it's basically putting the requirements into his active safety requirements as part of product development. So this is on the platform, right? Going next, this requirement is captured by the architect. So this is the architects come in and then they define. So you can see the context diagrams. Okay, sorry, I'm sorry about that. I think I missed. So you could see the context diagrams here. You could see the functional architecture being modeled, right, as part of the architecture. This is a detailed model of the vehicle with all the components, all the functionalities involved. You could do some like sequence diagrams. This is the control logic that we're talking about. You could actually take this object to Cameo, run the simulation. This is just Cameo simulation we just saw right now. To run the analysis at the architecture level using Cameo. Then the EE expert will work on the embedded architecture. This is on the platform. So you have a tool to do embedded architecture. This is a network topology being defined for the ADAS system. And then you can also do the mapping between the functional and the logical or the hardware topology. You can do that. You can do bus load analysis, which embedded architects do. So that capability is also been added or it's been available. And then you get into 1D modeling. So at this phase of time, you would need tools like Daimler as well to do vehicle dynamics. So you actually define the entire mathematical model of your vehicle with all the suspension powertrain, and you can do this kind of vehicle dynamics analysis for the same product, right? So this is another scenario where you're doing the brake testing for the ABS system or the ADAS system with CATIA 3D model, and then you're validating the results. You're also working out where you position the antenna for this. So you need an antenna to do the transceiver of the signals. So you're trying to position which is the best ideal place to place your antenna, right? You do this kind of simulations as well. So basically, you could do kind of electromagnetic simulation, your trade-off analysis. This is a place where you actually do safety analysis with respect to FE or FMEA, if you're looking at that. You could do embedded architecture, you could do Daimler model, all on the platform. And then you can actually get into software. Now you would want to write code for the software. You could bring MATLAB and simulation models, or you can write your own C code and do the analysis. So we support that, right? This is the whole process. You're running a traceability analysis with all the artifacts, your requirements, your Cameo models, your Daimler models, with your CATIA models, and then seeing you doing the impact on what if one requirement changes, what is the impact across. And then you probably can also get into CATIA part where you actually define the entire this is the PCB part of your ECU, right? This is your entire electrical DMU. And then you could finally end up with doing something. So this is an electromagnetic simulation for calculating the distance between the cars. And then you can actually do an integrated solution, something like this. For example, this is an automatic braking system. An object is coming in front of the vehicle and then it warns the driver and then brakes automatically, right? You could also do this scenario night mode. So basically, a cyber physical system is actually our a solution which is on the platform, which it's not only doesn't limit only to your tools like our own inherent tools like Cameo or CATIA or Daimler, but you can actually bring other tools, integrate. Main idea is that you follow the entire product development and you don't let go anything. It could be of different artifacts, different stakeholders, different tools. You can all bring them together and do an entire solution. So with that, I'll end my presentation. I think I can take a few questions before we conclude. So I think Praveen can help me with the questions. Praveen or Lakshmi?
Yes, Kiran, I'm going to help you with the questions. There are a few questions, right. Kiran. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible, Praveen.
All right. So here goes your first question. How do I use MBSE in digital manufacturing activities, doing final assembly line simulation?
Okay, so there is so MBSE can help you with the process modeling upfront. It can you could do actually. I would say you could actually build an architecture of your process model, validate it, whether you're following the right process. Basically, you'll have requirements for your manufacturing. You would want to validate the requirements, verify it before you actually get it to detailed modeling using CAD or probably Delmia tool. So MBSE can help you with a detailed understanding of how your process will evolve. You need a particular flow, or do you need a particular process to be implemented as part of manufacturing? All those kind of decisions can be taken up upfront, and it will help you with a better way of implementing your manufacturing line. Probably, I think I articulated better. Probably we can take this as a one-to-one discussion and probably explain it much better.
Sure, we'll take it a one-to-one then. There is another question. This question is from Mr. Rajat. His question is,
Right.
Is traceability done automatically from requirement to verification reporting?
Yes, if it's in the MBSE proper MBSE process with system in place, yes, it is very much possible. The idea is to keep the traceability till the end of your end of line or end of your product. Till actually, so we have requirements from OEMs who say that when the vehicle comes for maintenance, we should have the traceability. We need to change something. So the main idea of MBSE is to maintain the traceability throughout your production till your product is out and till it's been utilized as well.
Right.
Okay.
So another question from Mr. Atmanand. His question is this: Does Magic Cyber System Engineer contain Cameo System Modeler license?
Okay, so this is how it is. So Cameo is a tool, you need a tool, and then Magic Grid is a capability within the tool. I think the question was, what is Magic Grid framework? Is it separate or is it part of Cameo? So Magic Grid is a methodology. Magic Grid is a methodology. So we kind of promote that methodology. So you can use any systemal tool to follow that methodology. It's not only limited to Cameo. But yeah, you need a tool to implement that methodology. It can be Cameo or it can be non-Cameo. If it's in Cameo, we have ready-made templates for that Magic Grid within the tool, so you can easily use that.
Okay, all right, thank you. This question is from Mr. Elavarasan. His question is, how does Cameo connect to RFLP?
Sorry, friend, how does Cameo connect to?
How does Cameo connect to RFLP?
Okay, so Cameo. Okay, so RFLP is a common system engineering terminology which was promoted heavily by Dassault. RFLP has requirements, functional, logical, and physical. So Cameo can help you with requirements. It can help you with functional architecture. It can help you with logical. And for the physical, you might have to integrate with the concept of RFP was for CAD tools, right? So Cameo can talk to a bunch of tools. It can integrate CAD models for traceability. It can also take some inputs from CAD as part of analysis. Again, through FMI, it can talk to a lot many tools. You could bring MATLAB. You can bring third-party tools into software code into Cameo, and you can establish the RFLP. So similar to Magic Grid, RFLP is also kind of a methodology where you start with requirements, you build the architecture, do the logical, and do the physical. So and Cameo now being part of Dassault, I think it's going to increase our RFLP framework that we already have. So yeah, so what do we do in Cameo is kind of RFLP, but the P part is missing, which can be easily integrated with standalone Cameo as well as on the platform.
All right, thank you, Kiran. I think we are running out of time and we have more questions coming in. I think it's a good idea to answer them on an email to one. And thank you so much, Kiran, for giving this presentation. Thank you, everyone who have joined this webinar. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.